second down and 12. The ball is back on the 44. Herman is way wide to the right side. McNeil to the left. And Tucker Frederickson moved up into the slot. Look out for Frederickson. He's been a prime receiver. This time he goes deep to McNeil. Clemson's got it. And he is caught and he is dragged down by Ray Jones, but not until he reaches the Philadelphia 25-yard line.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video. And welcome to the Gridiron. I just want to go over briefly the press conference they had yesterday. The Giants, of course, with Dave Gettleman and Chris Pettit, the director of college scouting. Chris Pettit was a lot more animated than Kevin Abrams was the other day. And as Kevin Abrams, he had like the whole time had like a poker face on. He was just like straight ahead, very short answers. Chris Pettit was a lot more, his answers were a little more in depth and a little more in detail, obviously, without giving too much away. There was one question, I don't remember which one it was, but the question was being directed at Chris, and as the person was asking the question, just before Chris was getting ready to answer the question, Dave Gettleman put his hand on the mic and said something to him. It was something about talking to the guys through like Zoom meet, or how do you talk to the guys, because they were not allowed, were not supposed to be sitting down face to face with the guys talking to them. Most of it was supposed to be like Zoom meetings, and that was one of the questions, especially like Kim Jones of the NFL Network asked, was, how do you get to know the guys? Do you feel comfortable? Because having a Zoom meeting, is one thing. Talking to them, even a few times is, very, very helpful. But there's nothing quite like sitting down in a room or what, and just talking and seeing how the person reacts, what's their body, language, and all. You can always see what their eyes, how they're focused and all that in the Zoom meeting, but it's nothing quite like sitting down. And Kim Jones did ask the question, and Chris Pettit said they do feel rather comfortable with all the guys that they've interviewed, because they've had, a lot of the scouting department, has done a phenomenal job for them this year, and they really, really feel comfortable, with where they're at. Another question was asked to Dave Gettleman, and some of the guys he keeps on some of the guys like one and done, like they playing college basketball. They they play their freshman year and they're ready to go out in the draft. Well, it was almost kind of sometimes like this way it was this year, because a lot of the guys opted out. Some of the guys maybe got redshirted their freshman season, and they played one good year, like Rousseau. He has his one phenomenal year. He has 15.5 sacks. He sat out this year. You can't blame nobody for sitting out. But, you only have like 1 year worth of film to watch on him. What Dave Gettleman was talking about was, they want to see how their film was. But then they also want to talk down, ask, what did you do? Why did you sit out? What did you do while you were sitting out? He said some of the guys also, when their pro days came, they said some of them came in phenomenal shape. They looked good, and they knocked the pro day out of the park. He also mentioned some of the guys at their pro day, he said, came in looking like, he said, me. So Dave's a little overweight, so some of the guys didn't do such a good job. Another one of the things was, especially because the Giants, they keep bringing the coaches up from the college ranks. Huge, especially in this situation. Huge, because a lot of these college coaches tried to recruit some of these guys. So they've actually seen the guy, they've seen the guys like high school. They've talked to the guys, they've scouted them before. They've had hands on with them. So the Giants don't underestimate. They just brought the coach up from Tennessee, right? I mean, we got guys from Alabama. The Raging Cajuns, right? Don't underestimate any of this because that's huge. These guys have some interaction with a lot of these players that especially opted out, that some of these other teams don't. Because some of the other teams, their coaching staff is, I don't want to say retreads, but one guy gets let go from one team and they bring him in and he's been in the pros. Maybe it might have been a college coach at one point in time or assistant or whatever. But a lot of these teams have have coaches on their staff who have been NFL coaches, offensive coordinators, defense, whatever, for years. So it's been a long time since they've been in college. So a lot of these pro coaches, the defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators and the coach, and have been out of college football for 10, when was the last time Bill Belichick was in the college? Tell you what, right? He goes all the way back to 1976, I believe it is, with the Baltimore Colts. He hasn't been in college for, so some of these guys haven't been in college for a long time. And the Giants got a boatload of college coaches on their staff. It winds up being huge, absolutely huge. Somebody asked Dave Gettleman, you comfortable with just having 6 picks? Dave said he's very, very comfortable because you also look at, we picked up a pick, but we lost 2 picks. We lost the 7th round pick, but we got Isaac Yiadom, a cornerback, serviceable cornerback. You're going to have a hard time going into the NFL draft and in the 7th round taking a serviceable cornerback. Is it possible? Sure, but we cut that out. We have a serviceable cornerback that we for a 7th round pick. Pretty good. The 5th round pick this year that we lost, Leo the Lion. Can't complain about that. Marcus Golden went to the Cardinals, so we picked up a 6th round pick there. So that's why we got the 2 6. We don't have a 5th and we don't have a 7th. But the first 4, he said they just had like 2.5 weeks worth of meetings with their scouting department and all, and he said they're pretty much ready to rock and roll. Somebody asked Dave Gettleman about, how do you think, is your player going to be there or whatever? And he also, he's kind of like, it's kind of pretty much the way it is a lot of times. It's a lot of quarterback driven. He said something, I hope there's 10 quarterbacks that get picked in front of us, which is not going to happen. But, it's huge. The first 3 are quarterbacks. Now, does who the 3rd quarterback is, right? But where's Trey Lance go? Does Matt Daddy get in the top 10? Justin Fields. So you don't quite know, especially the 49ers are kind of a wild card there. You're not quite sure. Zach Wilson, you still know nobody's 100% sure that the Jets are taking him, but they're taking a quarterback. So you got some of the other teams, a little wild card. Like Denver, right? I don't think Drew Lock's the answer. I don't think. Somebody going to trade up in front of the Giants and grab a quarterback. So if they got 5 quarterbacks taken in front of the Giants in the first 10 picks, that's huge because now you only got 5. Jamar Chase is gone, and Kyle Pitts is gone. So boom. Right, so if you got 5 quarterbacks and those 2 guys, and there's only 3 other guys that are going to get taken in front of you, and your guy might be there. They asked Chris Pettit about, what do you think maybe taking an edge rusher at 11, and he said the 11th pick is not too rich for an edge rusher. He also said that the talk about the class. He said the class was pretty good at edge rushers, but he also was trying to mix his words, saying like, if the guy is there, if the the value's got to be there. He said you always try to, every year in the draft, that's a department you always try to pick up on. A position you always try to look at. Edge rusher. Now, whether you wind up taking one or not, it's another story. But he said every year in the edge rusher, you always try to fill the need. And I mean, you can talk to Dave Gettleman. You can never have too many pass rushers or edge rushers. Never. So he said this class was pretty good. Now he also mentioned the second round or possibly the third round or whatever. So once again, don't be surprised. And when Dave Gettleman talked about with Kevin Abrams about getting they're going to do better edge rushers. So we're going to get better. We're going to do better. So look for an edge rusher in the first couple rounds. Now the only other thing was they asked was Gettleman. He got a kick out of it. He said Daniel Jeremiah said that the NASCAR will have right-hand turns before Dave Gettleman trades back in a draft. Now he did say he tried to do it one time. He said he tries to do it all the time, or he considers it. He said one time, he didn't name any specific. He said somebody wanted to trade back with him. He was like on the phone. The team in front of him picked the team, the player that the team on the phone wanted, and they said, "Okay, Dave, sorry, that's the guy we wanted. No trade." And they just hung the phone up on him. So apparently, what he said, there was one time where he was getting ready to pull the trigger and trade back. The last time the Giants traded back was in 2006 when Ernie Accorsi was the GM. Now, just to kind of show you how things kind of all full circle here and all, the Giants took Mathias Kiwanuka, a decent player with the 32nd pick as they traded with the Steelers, who took Santonio Holmes. 2006, the Giants shot off to a 6-2 start. Really, really did good. Then they fell apart, and they started 6-2. They ended 2-6. So they wound up 8-8. The one play from him from that year, Mathias Kiwanuka, I'll never forget. The Giants were winning 21-0, I believe it was, against the Titans. They were 6-4, so the 11th game that they were playing, they went down to Tennessee. They were up 21-0 going into the final quarter. They gave up 24 points in the last quarter and lost the game. The Titans tied it up with under a minute to go, 21. We got the ball back. Second play, I think it was Eli Manning throws an interception. Tennessee gets the ball. And it was the last play, or as time was running out, Rob Barones kicked, I think it was a 49-yard field goal. And we lost 24-21. So anyway, in that fourth quarter, something happened earlier in the game where Mathias Kiwanuka, or one of the Giants players, wrapped up Vince Young, I think, and they blew the whistle or something. Then they knocked him to the ground, and they threw a flag on him. Well, in that fourth quarter, Tennessee had the ball 4th and 10 at their own 24-yard line. The Giants were ahead. Mathias Kiwanuka broke in, had Vince Young wrapped up. Either he thought he threw the ball or he didn't want to get a roughing penalty on him. So he had him wrapped up, and then he let him go. And Vince Young took off, got the first down, and continued to drive, and they wound up winning from there. If he'd sacked Vince Young, they would have had the ball inside the Tennessee 20-yard line, easy field goal range, and the Giants would have won that game. But he let him go. He had him wrapped up. I can still see it to this day. Had him wrapped up, let him go. Vince Young took off, first down. I think right after that, Coughlin pulled him out, and you can see him. He has a folder, some papers in his hand. He said, "You got it." Oh, he was like berating him up and down because he let him go, and the Giants wound up losing that game. I remember that from Mathias Kiwanuka. Decent player, but that's the last time that the Giants traded back in a draft. It was 2006. They swapped picks with the Steelers, and they took Matthias Kiwanuka as Ernie Accorsi. Now, will Dave Gettleman break the streak? Who knows? We'll find out. It's only 6 days away. Well, as always, guys, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to check out this video. You guys stay safe out there, and go Giants. Woo!